Welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, with our brother Alok. Namaste. We are in Canto 9 of Book 2, The Paradise of the Life Gods. And once one begins to read this, how would one ever want to leave?
Yes.
We'll find out in the first lines of the next canto, where Sri Aurobindo says,
this too must be left behind.
This too must be left behind. As all must be until the highest is gained, in whom the world and self grow true and one. But when you're in this canto, it is so beautiful, isn't it?
And it also gives a hint of what may have happened to many mystics.
Yes.
Because, when you read the accounts, many of them actually would have entered this zone and felt that this is the highest.
Mm-hmm. And got lost in it.
Yeah. Even
Yes.
Mother speaks about the dazzling powers of the overmind, where, if one has a glimpse of those gods, one really believes that one is at the very highest
Yes.
Godhead.
Yes.
One has seen the divine.
Yes.
So if that is true of the overmind, when we read this particular description, where we see that it's the perfection that human beings seek.
Exactly.
So what else is really needed? So
Yes.
So we shall continue reading, or you want to read something from the
Just
dictionary? Yes.
that, because this is so important that Mother writes, the daily record of the spiritual experiences of the individual who has written.
Yes.
A complete system of yoga, which can serve as a guide for those who want to follow the integral sadhana, the yoga of the earth in its ascension towards the divine, the experiences of the Divine Mother in her effort to adapt herself to the body she has taken, and the ignorance and falsity of the earth upon which she has incarnated.
So that's about Savitri, and this brings us to a question which sometimes people ask: that are all these real things, and whatever is described, these experiences of other domains? Of course, to the mystic it is very, very real, because the mystic experiences them, navigates through them. They know the law, the energy, the forces, they meet the beings not once, twice, but several times. Mother speaks of that. So the mystic has every right to accept these as real experiences. At the same time, there is within us something that corresponds to that. What we experience is not exactly these domains, but the influence of these domains, which has twofold effect. One is in terms of states of consciousness. So, we have, for example, we had stopped with Gandharva kings.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gandharvas are actually, if we go to the Vedic lore, Gandharvas are hosts of delight. So, they are great gods, they receive delight and they pour it. So, if you reach that status of consciousness, you receive delight. But in the realm of cosmic life, so it's still in the realm of the vital, but there you can get some taste, some touch of that. Later on in the Puranas, we see many of the Vedic gods, they resumed a little inferior position. And it's possible, as mankind evolved, it had more experiences and many other, realizations got crowded up. So they assume an inferior position. So the Gandharvas also were relegated to the vital world, though even there they were regarded as basically good beings. Though beings of the vital world don't have the conception of good and bad. Sri Aurobindo speaks of that they can be mighty gods or strong datyas. Both exist there.
Mm-hmm. And he speaks of it here also.
Yes, and the other part is that they, Gandharva especially, they are known to be warriors, but more so celestial musicians. So they are musicians, artists, and warriors. So later, now people speak of Gandharvas primarily as musicians or celestial musicians, but there are warrior Gandharvas who are very powerful warriors. Now it's quite likely that on earth, some of the kings who were great warriors, but also had great love for music and poetry and art, some musicians who have risen to celestial heights, if you may say so, were either inspired by the Gandharv Lok or may have actually incarnated and embodied some beings of these worlds. So it's important to understand, these worlds and their importance. Secondly, as you just read in the beginning, one can easily get caught. If you read it, who would want to go further? This is the heaven that we read in the Puranas.
Exactly.
Even most of the time when people portray a heaven is like that, all the celestial musicians, there is power, there is joy, and everything that we conceive of as a dream life. And right now, Shobindu is describing it as much as possible with utmost perfection. And because these worlds are there, and because something of them is embedded within us or reflected in our consciousness, that is why we dream of these states or these kind of ideal worlds. It's not an escape. Many
Heavenly
psychologists,
abodes.
yes, they think that it's an escapade that people start imagining such worlds. On the contrary, people imagine such worlds because they exist. So this is the
Yes.
other way of looking at it. So now we continue on page 234. Across the vibrant secrecies of space, a dim and happy music sweetly stole. Look at the amazing perfection of the description. As a scientist, the word he is using for space is vibrant secrecies of space. Now, that space is vibrating. Modern physics does speak of that. But he is actually experiencing the space as something vibrating, where there are secrecies hidden inside, which through this vibration they'll be revealed.
Yes.
What a description it is. Smitten by unseen hands, he heard heart close. By the way, this line, a dim and happy music sweetly stole, it's a good reminder to many people who do these religious ceremonies, both Hindus, Muslims, everywhere. They put very loud music. And sometimes I keep telling them gods don't like it.
Yes.
Even in our Desiree home, morning sometimes very loud mother's music. So they get a feeling that I'll be very happy. I said, see, this is not what mother would like. Put it on a scale which is not hurting to the ears. It's wonderful. It's very nice, but not blaring loud. Gods are not deaf. They are very subtly, they can pick up even when music is at this lowest. So this is a good example that the music there is dim. So
And
happy. Smitten by unseen hands, he heard heart close the harp's cry of the heavenly minstrels pass. Why is he saying heart close? It's very interesting. That's where you hear the unstruck music. If there is an access to the unstruck music, unseen hands which are playing it, it is through the door of the heart.
Yes.
So as he is moving, he is hearing it arise from the heart like a mantra. And voices of unearthly melody chanted the glory of eternal love in the white blue moonbeam air of paradise. So, describing everything, the air of paradise and the chant, the songs which are going to heaven, songs of eternal love. That's the theme there. And here the themes are, our sweetest songs are those that tell of the saddest tales, but not in those words.
Nolini spoke to us about the hyphenated words. And he said that when Sri Aurobindo hyphenates a word, Here we have white, blue, moonbeam. And then we had heart close.
Yes.
He said it becomes one word.
Yes.
So we have to see it as one word. Now, if there's a capital in it, then the capital takes precedent, but it's still one word.
Interesting. Interesting. Very interesting. And gives a clue to many things. A summit and core of all that marvelous world, apart stood high Elysian, nameless hills, burning like sunsets in a trance of Eve. So again, these dreaming hills, Elysian hills, beautiful, full of delight. As if to some new unsearched profundity, into a joyful stillness plunge their base. Their slopes through a hurry of laughter and voices sank. Now look at this line, through a hurry of laughter and voices. As if they are crowding and then passing away. He gives such a graphic description. That's why what Sri Aurobindo writes, in the ancient Vedic sense, the seer is a creator of forms. So look, when he writes, he builds the forms and brings the whole state so close to us. And even on earth, many such worlds, earth draws up plans from these worlds. So there are places where, let's say that there would be a place which resembles the Elysian hills with that kind of sunset and bases plunging. So many people begin to believe that, it's about some place on earth. But it's not either or. Nature draws her plans from all domains and puts it on earth. So we will see on earth places like that. Some Edens and some such nameless hills. As if to some new unsearched profundity, into a joyful stillness plunge their base. Their slopes through a hurry of laughter and voices sank, crossed by a throng of singing rivulets, adoring blue heaven with their happy hymn. Down into woods of shadowy secrecy, lifted into wide voiceless mystery, their peaks climb towards a greatness beyond life.
You feel
it's so
feel that
real.
it's somewhere
the hill,
here.
With the sunset, and it's there, and it's climbing to an height which one cannot really fathom. The bases are plunged. Why this is important? Because sometimes we mix in Indian thought, especially, we see a very beautiful blend of occult truths and earthly realities. And it confuses many people. We have Kailash, for instance, which is the abode of Lord Shiva. We have Vrindavan. We have Vindhyachal ranges, which is crossed. And we have Sumeru Parvat. Though I must say that all these places could have become very paying places as far as tourism is concerned, and they have not really used it to the hilt. But the point is that these places were named after similar places because perhaps the ancient seers with their vision and those people of those times could see that this is what approximately resembles that domain. Because there is obviously a description of certain domains. And you see something resembling here.
But beyond life.
Beyond life. These shining Edens of the vital gods received him in their deathless harmonies. Look how easy it is to get trapped in these worlds. All things were perfect there that flower in time. It's very interesting that whatever we find here has this perfect replica there. Whether it's a vase, whether it's a space, whether it's a tree, whether it's a river or a mountain, you can imagine how perfect it could be, and it's there. Here there is a invariable distortion. There is something which deviates from the original plan. And of course, we human beings make it even worse with our ideas. So we cut away forest. All the Edens have now gone, sold out to multimillionaires.
Yeah.
Yeah. So beauty was their creation's native mold. Peace was a thrilled, voluptuous purity. Now, this is amazing. The word voluptuous hardly goes with purity because
Or peace.
sensual, it's a sensual, it's basically voluptuous refers to the sensual joy. Now, ordinarily, sensual joy is supposed to be an antithesis and anathema to anything spiritual. We are taught to discard sensual joys because it's something which is like a trap. But Shubindu is saying sensuous joy can also be pure. And that's the sense of the Apsaras who dance in paradise. They are voluptuous in beauty and deep within they are beings of light. They are not really, as later on portrayed, dark beings who come to make the Rishi fall. Actually, they come to make him more perfect for the greater truth for which he must aspire beyond. So they are not just testing him, but they are actually helping him eventually to advance because there is something which is not yet right. So there we see that there is a voluptuous purity and it's full of peace. This is not a sensuous beauty which is creating excitement and thrill, but it's full of peace. Their love fulfilled her gold and roseate dreams. Roseate,
Yes.
tinge of pinkish red, those dreams. And strength, her crowned and mighty reveries. Desire climbed up a swift, omnipotent flame, and pleasure had the stature of the gods. Can pleasure be divine? Yes, pleasure can be godlike. If you really see, when it's not a means to, it's not a means to entrap your senses, but something which is truly derived from the greater delight, but comes down right into the body, into the nerves, in the very senses. Shubindu speaks of this. Even his senses, when they experience the greater ananda, and there is a spontaneous awakening of or upliftment of many things which normally one would call as only possible at a sensual level. And the beauty of this is that he is saying desire was a flame which is omnipotent. Normally, desire on earth is absolutely incapable. That's why it's always struggling, it's wanting, it's always struggling. When it gets something, it doesn't know. It wants something else and something else and something else. But here there is a desire which knows the truth, the secret, and goes straight to the core and finds it. Here desire is under the complete influence of ignorance and error. Now, how can someone imagine that desire could be beautiful? But that's how it is. Of course, we must say that this is for those who want to stay at this level. There is a greater beyond. And those who want to go beyond to the world of total, utter delight, they have to shun all kinds of pleasure, including heavenly pleasure. That's how the mother puts it. She uses the word super Parsifal. Then only you can arrive at the true Ananda. But here you get a reflected Ananda as revealed in this plane of the life gods. It's something amazing. So, everything on earth has its heavenly equivalent. Dream walked along the highways of the stars. Sweet common things turned into miracles, overtaken by the Spirit's sudden spell, smitten by a divine passion's alchemy. So, this desire, again, it reminds me of a story. So, in the heavens of the Hindu pantheology and mythology, there is a very interesting animal or a goddess, call it whatever, and her name is Kamadhenu. If you literally translate it, it means she is the giver of all that your heart desires. And it is a calf of Kamdenu called Nandini, which Vasisht Rishi had. So obviously very symbolic. And this Nandini was in his ashram. So whenever he needed, whatever he needed for the ashram people, of course he was not misusing it. So Nandini would provide. And that's how when Vishwamitra comes to the ashram and he is very tired with all his soldiers, he says, is there something to eat? Expecting some fruits and water, and they are served lavish meal. And he wonders, he says, how did you manage all this? He says, well, it's because of Nandini. So he wants to carry Nandini away. And Vasisht says that, well, if Nandini is willing, you can take. Why? Because Vasisht wants to remain non-violent. He could have used his force, spiritual force, but it doesn't do it to defend Nandini. And then as he wants to drag Nandini, Nandini grows furious, and countless armies come out of her hooves and ears and decimate his army. And Shubindu says that because Vasisht didn't use his spiritual force, or rather didn't exercise what he had to do, he just stayed back. And Nandini released certain occult forces. Because of that, armies of Shaks and Huns came into India. Speaks of that, moral force, how destructive it can be. But the point is that there is a way that even things of everyday life, we have Draupadi's Akshay Patra, nice meals could be cooked. Now, if you look at food, it's normally regarded as something which belongs to the world of the senses. It's a kind of pleasure. But even that can be there. When mother was asked, when these steel plates came instead of porcelain, and people were very happy that steel plates have come in the dining room, maybe knowing this story, and mother was told that, mother, we are so happy now steel plates have come. And mother said, no, I want my children to eat in cold plates. So there is an aspect where only thing is when it is with somebody who has perfect mastery and control, then it's an asset. But when it is with the asura, with the egoistic nature, like at that time Vishwamitra, then it is destructive. Divine doesn't want us to suffer and remain in misery or in poverty. He wants us to lead a normal, healthy, happy life in every which way. But when there is a perfect mastery of the senses. So that's why Ashapati has admittance into this. But there is a world like that. Even in ashram, we don't know how, sometimes the visitors, the crowd swells from 2,500 to 15,000. How is it managed? I am sure mother has her own Nandini and Kamdenu who provides.
Happiness seems to be the overriding theme.
Yes.
And mother said that to Champakla.
Yes.
Be simple, be happy.
But it's interesting because it, challenges many notions. It's there in Indian mythology. But people who are of a very ascetic tendency, they overlook it or they, try to gloss over it. But a rishi like Vasisht had Nandini in the ashram, and there is Kamdhenu with the gods who can provide anything. So with Mount Kailash, when the gods and the demons go for feast, they go because what beautiful food is available. There is a story of Sita's kitchen. I'm pointing out this because Indian mythology is very rich side, which has unfortunately turned into a purely ascetic interpretation. So when Rama and others, they go to the kitchen of Sita, there are so many different kinds of dishes prepared, and they are wondering who has made it. So it's the Jagan Mata herself who is preparing all these dishes. Extremely tasty, So, pains, self-compelled, transformed to potent joy, smitten by a divine passion's alchemy, pains, self-compelled, transformed to potent joy, curing the antithesis twixt heaven and hell. This is exactly what we were reading.
Yeah.
We were sharing that how these things which normally take your footsteps to hell, they become in this world something which is so heavenly and closer to the divine. So I think the secret is self-mastery, and somebody who has battled with oneself and won the mastery over the night. Then one becomes an adhikari of this, People here, they come, they don't understand how this ashram is like this. If you look at even the outsides of Sri Aurobindo ashram, it's not a very rich ashram. Nobody will give so much money for a divine project like this. But look at even in simplicity, there is a beauty, and everybody is provided for whatever they need and more than they need. And people wonder sometimes, because they have this idea that you have to make your body suffer to do yoga. So they can't imagine a swimming pool and Olympic sized swimming pool and sports and everything. How can it be? But it's there. Curing the antithesis twixt heaven and hell. All life's high visions are embodied there, her wandering hopes achieved, her aureate combs, of course, these are the honeycombs, aureate combs, caught by the honey eater's darting tongue, her burning guesses changed to ecstasy truths, her mighty pantings stilled in deathless calm, and liberated her immense desires. So this is the amazing part of this world. Great kings are there, monarchs are there. In that paradise of perfect heart and sense. So there is no crude movement. That is important. Everything is there, but very refined. Like even in food, you can have very crude taste. And you can have an extremely refined taste. Now, I don't know, I maybe the French or the Japanese, they have very refined taste about food. But some people have very crude taste. Extremely spicy, otherwise the food is not tasty at all. Very rajasic. But there are people for whom food with very little of these masalas can be extremely tasty. So basically the desire aspect, the senses aspect is extremely refined. So that draws the rasa right away through the object. And that's the kind of life out there. So it's a paradise of perfect heart and sense. No lower note. Oh, there it comes. Look at it.
There it is. A lower note.
No lower note could break the endless charm. So why do we fall? Because a lower note comes in. We taste food and we say, if I could have more. And then we become gluttons. I mean, that way I like, the French way of eating food. What I have heard, I have not seen, I must say. They'll take very nice, tasty things, but a little bit of it and savor it. But typical, I wouldn't use the word, you have food and you are a glutton, you're rushing. So there is no lower note. They joy, but there is not that crude and vulgar or an ostentatious display of things. No lower note could break the endless charm of her sweetness, ardent and immaculate. Her steps are sure of their intuitive fall. After the anguish of the soul's long strife, at length were found calm and celestial rest, and lapped in a magic flood of sorrowless hours, healed were his warrior nature's wounded limbs, in the encircling arms of energies that brooked no stain and feared not their own bliss. So you have to go through the fight.
But this is so important because Mother said Sri Aurobindo suffered like no one.
Yes.
And he had to go into the depths of hell to bring their light. And then he's given this relief in the paradise of the life gods. Extraordinary.
So that is the whole catch. This paradise doesn't come by desiring it.
Yeah.
In fact, there is a poem of Sri Aurobindo, Kama. And there he says, what is the rule of the game? So he says the rule of the game is, which has been started by the divine himself. Those who chase it, lose it. I'm forgetting the exact word. Those who turn away, they are chased by it. Please take these gifts. So, after Ashwapati has fought the battle, gone through the night, then comes this state of at least first zone where there is a lasting happiness, where there is refinement. In scenes forbidden to our palate sense. Why? Because we are very crude. And miraculous scents, amid miraculous scents and wonder hues, he met the forms that divinize the sight. So even perfumes are allowed. And we had people, and you can imagine, the more crude we are, the more we need asceticism. Actually, I can tell you it is directly proportional to the crudeness of nature. So refined consciousness will not need it. It will not be attracted to it. It will straight away go from that step towards the higher divinity. So there were people who questioned Mother. Why do you use lipsticks? Why are you wearing nice saris?
French
perfumes. And this is strange, because in India this is strange. I must tell you, because in India, at least the way I read all the scriptures, when you describe Goddess Lakshmi, she is Rajeshwari, the Divine Mother. She is full of the most exquisite, beautiful ornaments. And what a glory is described. Mother Aditi, the Divine Mother. Her ornaments are described as sun and moon. They are glowing like that. She is not, like a beggar woman or pauper. I just don't know where all these thoughts have come. Probably post-Buddhist and post-Shankara.
Yeah.
But
that question was raised to Sri Aurobindo. Why does Mother wear famous, beautiful saris?
Yes.
He said, would you have the divine dress in rags?
Yes. This is strange conception.
Yes.
That what is important is crudeness or refinement.
Yes.
Crudeness brings vulgarity. Even if you are wearing nothing ostentatious, nothing rich, you are poor outwardly, yet you are inwardly vulgar. This association that a spiritual person must be beggar-like is absolutely foolish. He can live like a beggar if need be. He is not attached to it. But if he lives in richness, he is fine with it. That's what Sri Aurobindo says in The Mother. And so here is a world where Ashwapati has entered and he is seeing these scenes. No television is required, and they are scenes, beautiful scenes.
These next lines.
Amid miraculous scents and wonder hues, he met the forms that divinize the sight, to music that can immortalize the mind and make the heart wide as infinity. Now this is important, whether that music simply thrills and excites, or it makes the heart enter into states of wideness and beauty and joy. Listened and captured the inaudible cadences that awake the occult ear. Out of the ineffable hush it hears them come, trembling with the beauty of a wordless speech. Another interesting combination. What is wordless speech? Is he speaking of just expressions? Or is he speaking of simple thought forms which go vibrating and enter the heart and they awaken a sense within? That is the kind of communication being used there.
Next line he explains it.
Yeah.
And thoughts.
And thoughts too great and deep to find a voice. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Because here the moment you speak, speech is meant to be a bridge between two human beings. But when the consciousness is crude, speech becomes a means to destroy whatever harmony there may be. Two people are happy as long as they don't speak. And the moment they speak, they start quarreling. But there is a world where there is a thought. Why? Because we don't catch the consciousness behind speech. We catch words and give it a structured form, rigid form, forever. And that too according to the sense in our head. That's what we do with Mother and Sri Aurobindo's words also. We pick them up, give them a form which is already there in our head, a very rigid form, turn it into dogma, whereas words are meant to go into the consciousness which is behind. At one place, a disciple asked the mother, is there in agenda, Mother, last time you said that, when you were coming, you felt Sri Aurobindo's aura some 10 nautical miles, but now you are saying some 2.5 or something miles. So, which is truer? Imagine. So, mother laughs and she says, they are stuck with words and the external things. They don't understand the essence, because the disciple says, how does it matter? The point is you experienced it. She says, yes, but they don't understand. They are stuck with forms and outer body. So that's the difference between pedagogues and those who get into semantics and those who get to the heart of things. So here, thought forms, and behind the thought, the consciousness was immediately understood. So there was no need for these kind of words. Thoughts whose desire new makes the universe. They were powerful thoughts. They were creative thoughts. They could create things, bring things. A scale of sense that climbed with fiery feet. So you see here again the emphasis on the purification of the senses, not a rejection of the senses. Sri Aurobindo describes it at great length in the Synthesis of Yoga. The senses have to be purified. Then they can bear the touch immaculate. Otherwise they'll break down, because the wiring is so crude. It doesn't respond to soft touches of the divine. In fact, it wonders. If sometimes it has a experience of, as if the mother put the hand, the person wonders, is it really true? Is it really real? Or did I dream or imagine it? Perhaps if we had refined senses, we would experience it much more often. But that's the problem. Our senses move within a narrow limit. But there the senses climb, and look at the word fiery, to heights of unimagined happiness. Senses are meant to be channels of joy. Through the senses, we come in contact with the world around us. And what is hidden behind the forms is delight. So they should be conduits of delight, the rasa. But they don't get rasa, because right from the point of reception, there is a distortion that goes on. And then the mind, then the preferences. And so we don't get the rasa. We only have good and bad and reactions, pleasant, unpleasant. But that's not the case there. Recast his being's aura in joy glow. His body glimmered like a sky shell, like the sky. So sky like shell. His gates to the world were swept with seas of light. So gates to the world is his means of contact. The senses in that domain were all luminous. And there is a Sri Aurobindo's whole poem on divine sense. And he says that every time now I taste the food, it is the fruits of paradise that I am partaking. Divine hearing, divine sight. So everything has to be transmuted. And it must go through this phase of purification. This is one of the stages through which it passes. It can't straight away go to bare delight. It will break down. His earth, endowed with celestial competence, blessed with celestial competence. If I have to use a sense, gifted, dowered with celestial competence, harbored a power that needed now no more to cross the closed customs line of mind and flesh and smuggle Godhead into humanity. Just now, that's what we are discussing. It's unimaginable. Sri Aurobindo, next few lines will reveal this truth. Yes. That normally when we receive the world contacts, there is delight, but it doesn't come to us as delight. It comes to us as pleasure, pain and indifference. Somehow through all this, Godhead is being smuggled. Imagine.
Sense of humor.
And when do we discover the Godhead? After many years. I mean, there is a practical side to it. Take any experience of life, even after many years, during that phase, you are, partly enjoying, then you suffer, you go through, everybody goes through that. And much later, when you think about that experience, you can smile inwardly. What a stupid fool I was. Not that one is more wiser later on, but at least a little less stupid. And one can look back and smile. I was feeling sad for such things. Why? Because that experience is transmuted into something like its equivalent of delight. But it happens when you are progressing rapidly. Otherwise, in one life, it's very difficult. It takes a lifetime for the change. But those who are moving very fast, evolution fast forward, it's one of the things is that all the past that changes into a sense of joy because one sees the divine hand in everything. So, we have this beautiful smuggle Godhead into humanity. Wonderful sense of humor. A few more lines we'll read. It shrank no more from the supreme demand of an untired capacity for bliss. What is he asking us? That be happy in the highest sense. This is the command and the demand from us. But we cannot be. We are tired of too much happiness. We begin to cry, we begin to sing, jump, dance, get excited, go mad. And we call in sorrow as a counterpart, otherwise we stop feeling joy. So this is our present limitation. But this is not what the divine wants. People who say divine sends us sorrow so that we can value him and pray to him. I have heard this in one of the philosophy. I said this is monstrous divine. Who sends you sorrow so that you can pray to him. Even a good human being will not do this. To whip people so that they pray to him. He wants us to enjoy. So why does pain come? Because we are not ready for that tremendous delight. The embrace of the world we cannot bear because we are too small and narrow. And therefore we shrink from it and we experience pain. Even at the physical level, Sri Aurobindo speaks of the ability to transform even sharp shooting pain into an equivalent of delight. And that will be the ultimate change. A might that could explore its own infinite and beauty and passion and the depths reply, nor feared the swoon of glad identity. What is this identity he is speaking of? Where spirit and flesh in inner ecstasy join, annulling the quarrel between self and shape. So, the matter in that world can hold the breath of the spirit and not break down. But matter here cannot hold it. That is the big difficulty. Divine does not want us to be unhappy.
Mother says we are too concerned about the form.
Yes. Whereas in those worlds, the form can bear the pressure of that delight.
Yes.
As the delight increases, the form also responds and is plastic to that touch. Last few lines and then we'll stop. Don't feel like stopping, but at least somewhere. It drew from sight and sound spiritual power. This is amazing. We thought one has to close the eyes and shut the ears to go within. How can sight and sound? Because you contact the all beautiful and all delight. Sri Aurobindo speaks of this in Synthesis of Yoga. He says there are two ways of contacting the divine presence. One is that you go inside, plunge inside and discover the divine within you. Or you go into the world play, go deeper and deeper, and then you will contact. Because he is hidden everywhere. So equally by going past appearances of forms, if the senses can be developed to an extent that you go past appearances, all kinds of appearances, then eventually you will touch the soul of form. And that gives delight. That is the rasa. So that is another way to contact the divine appearance through divine presence through sight and sound and taste. It's there in the scriptures. Tasting Amrita, smelling, all these are there in the scriptures. But people have forgotten this knowledge and all that they speak about is sitting and meditating and closing your eyes and that's it. And intellectualizing stuff. This is so real. And how the mother could look at a flower and experience, look at the vegetable and know its truth. Even the she speaks of Madame Theon. She could draw the entire energy from a flower or from a apple,
A melon.
melon. So what was that? What's that capacity? Because by identity, it's all around the universal energy. Made sense, a road to reach the intangible. Look at the contradiction. Intangible by definition means that which the senses cannot contact. But senses become a road to reach the intangible. It thrilled with the supernal influences that build the substance of life's deeper soul. Earth nature stood reborn, comrade of heaven. So I suppose these were the great kings whom we hear who participated with the gods in the battle between the gods and the titans. We have mention of such kings, Pururavas and Rama's father Dashratha. They fought from the side of the gods in the battle against gods and the titans. So because they had purified their being to an extent that they could drive away the negative energies in whatever field they were there, the Asuric and Rakshasic influences. So they fought. And almost all of them got celestial gifts. It's very interesting. So we'll stop here. Now we have actually come to the close of it. Now Shubhendu will be summarizing it and we can take it up. We'll speak about the day.